2017.
इग्नू के प्रथम व संस्थापक कुलपति प्रोफेसर जी राम रेड्डी को शिक्षा जगत में कौन नहीं जानता। न सिर्फ भारत में वरन अन्य विकासशील देशों में उच्चतर शिक्षा के लिए उनके योगदान के कारण ही उन्हें बहुत ही ख्याति व पहचान मिली। उन्होंने भारत में उच्च शिक्षा की कई संस्थाओं को स्थापित किया और उन्हें पोषित किया। इसके अतिरिक्त शिक्षा जगत में वे कई उच्च पदों पर रहे। शिक्षा ददाति विनयम, इस कथन को प्रोफेसर जी राम रेड्डी ने बखूबी चरितार्थ किया। वे इतने सत्यनिष्ठ, सहृदय एवं सहज उपलब्ध होने वाले मर्यादित व्यक्तित्व के धनी थे कि उन्हें जानने वाले लोग उन्हें अजात कहते थे। ऐसे प्रोफेसर रेड्डी की स्मृतियों को ताज़ा करने के लिए व उन्हें श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करने के लिए हम प्रत्येक वर्ष 2 जुलाई को प्रोफेसर जी राम रेड्डी स्मृति व्याख्यान का आयोजन करते हैं, जिसमें देश के प्रख्यात व शीर्षस्थ वक्ताओं को सुनने का हमें सुनहरा अवसर मिलता है और आज वही खास दिन है।
Well, it's that time of the year when we all gather to remember and pay our homage to our most beloved and revered founder Vice Chancellor Professor G. Ram Reddy. It is an honor for the Indira Gandhi National Open University to host the Professor G. Ram Reddy Memorial Lecture every year, not only as a mark of respect for our founder Vice Chancellor, but also as a means to fulfill his vision of academic excellence by inviting eminent speakers who not only give us an insight into the diversities of knowledge, but at the same time pave the way for better pursuits and endeavors for our university. It was Professor G. Ram Reddy who foresaw, planned, designed, and shaped the academic and administrative setup of our mega university, which today, under the able guidance of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Ravindra Kumar, has made a mark worldwide. Professor G. Ram Reddy was a person with a distinct academic orientation, and above all, a pioneer of distance education. He wrote extensively in spite of his many administrative responsibilities, contributing a plethora of works in the field of distance education. He was a stalwart in his field and a scholar par excellence, who has been admired by one and all, especially in the academic fraternity. His remarkable services have and will always be a guiding light for the progress of the Indira Gandhi National Open University.
मैं माननीय कुलपति प्रोफेसर रविंद्र कुमार जी, हमारे मुख्य अतिथि प्रोफेसर एम जगदीश कुमार, कुलपति जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय, हमारे आज के वक्ता प्रोफेसर वाई वैकुंठम, प्रख्यात इतिहासकार एवं भूतपूर्व कुलपति ककातिया विश्वविद्यालय वारंगल, हमारे कुल सचिव श्री शिवनंदन कुमार शर्मा जी और आयोजन समिति के अध्यक्ष प्रोफेसर जितेंद्र श्रीवास्तव का हार्दिक अभिनंदन करती हूं और उनसे आग्रह करती हूं कि कृपया मंच पर आएं और इसे सुशोभित करें।
At this point, I would also like to welcome all our faculty members, research scholars, staff, and our fellow colleagues at the headquarters as well as the regional centers across India. I would also take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to Mrs. Pramila Reddy, who makes it a point to travel all the way from Hyderabad every year for this memorial lecture. We are very grateful and thankful to you, ma'am, for being a part of today's lecture. This program is being webcast live across the world and can be watched at http://webcast.gov.in/IGNOU. And it can also be heard live at our Gyanvani radio station 105.6 FM. Before we formally begin with today's memorial function, I would request all our honorable guests to please proceed for the lighting of the lamp.
शुभम करोति कल्याणम आरोग्यम धन संपदा शत्रु बुद्धि विनाशाय दीप ज्योतिर्नमस्तुते। उस दीप को मेरा नमन जो समृद्धि, शुभकामना, अच्छा स्वास्थ्य और अपार धन लाता है और अंधकार का विनाश करता है। हम सब यही कामना करते हैं कि दीपक के इस प्रकाश की तरह इग्नू का नाम भी, इसकी ख्याति, इसकी प्रसिद्धि और समृद्धि भी चारों तरफ फैले।
A lamp does not speak. It introduces itself through its light. Achievers never expose themselves, but their achievements expose them. May the achievements of IGNOU be endless, and with this ray of hope, prosperity, and success, we wish that our university prospers in the times to come.
मंचासीन सभी गणमान्य व्यक्तियों से मेरा निवेदन कि कृपया प्रोफेसर जी रामरेड्डी की प्रतिमा पर पुष्प अर्पित कर उन्हें श्रद्धांजलि दें।
Professor G. Ram Reddy, a true visionary and exemplary educationist and able administrator, IGNOU owes so much, very truly and sincerely, to this great leader. We humbly pay our homage to the pioneer of distance education, Professor G. Ram Reddy. I would request Mrs. Reddy to please stay back on the stage. And I now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to please welcome Mrs. Reddy with a token of respect on behalf of the Indira Gandhi National Open University.
माननीय कुलपति जी से मेरा निवेदन कि वो हमारे आज के मुख्य अतिथि एवं वक्ता का स्वागत करें।
I would request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to please welcome Professor Y. Vaikuntham and our Chief Guest, Professor M. Jagdish Kumar, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Jawaharlal Nehru University, with a token of respect. I would now request Dr. Jiten Srivastava to please welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor with a token of respect as well for today's function. May I now request Dr. Jitendra Srivastava, Chairman of the 22nd Professor G. Ram Reddy Memorial Committee, to deliver his welcome address.
धन्यवाद डॉक्टर संध्या, डॉक्टर अनुप्रिया। मंच पर आसीन प्रोफेसर वाई वैकुंठम, पूर्व कुलपति काकतीय विश्वविद्यालय, आज के हमारे मुख्य अतिथि प्रोफेसर एम जगदीश कुमार, कुलपति जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय, हमारे अपने कुलपति प्रोफेसर रविंद्र कुमार जी, हमारे कुल सचिव श्री शिवनंदन कुमार शर्मा जी, उपस्थित विद्वत समुदाय, देवियों, सज्जनों और मित्रों, 22वें जी राम रेड्डी स्मृति व्याख्यान के इस महत्वपूर्ण अवसर पर मैं आप सबका हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं। हमारी अपनी परंपरा में जो हमारे अपने बड़े हैं, बुजुर्ग हैं, जब वो नहीं रहते हैं, चले जाते हैं, उन्हें याद करने की परंपरा है। प्रोफेसर जी राम रेड्डी हमारे पहले कुलपति थे, हम प्रतिवर्ष उन्हें याद करते हैं। भारतीय दर्शन में जीवन के बारे में बिल्कुल स्पष्ट है, दो ही रास्ते हैं, या तो जीवन बिता कर जा सकते हैं या जीवन गंवा कर जा सकते हैं। जीवन बिता कर जाने का मतलब है पूर्ण काम होना, और भारतीय दर्शन पूर्ण काम होने को व्यष्टि से नहीं जोड़ता, समष्टि से जोड़ता है। यदि आपके कारण दूसरों के अधरों पर हंसी आई तो आप पूर्ण काम हैं। यही जीवन बिता कर जाना है। प्रोफेसर रेड्डी पूर्ण काम गए, जीवन बिता कर गए, इस तरह गए कि हम प्रतिवर्ष उन्हें याद करते हैं और उन्हें याद करते हुए यह 22वां वर्ष है। इस अवसर पर मैं पुनः उन्हें याद करता हूँ, उन्हें अपनी विनम्र श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करता हूँ और विश्वविद्यालय जो प्रतिवर्ष एक अकादमिक श्रद्धांजलि के तौर पर उन्हें याद करता है और किसी न किसी एक बड़े विद्वान को आमंत्रित करता है कि वे विद्वान आएँ और यहाँ पर उच्च शिक्षा से जुड़े किसी एक विषय पर अपना व्याख्यान दें। इस वर्ष यह व्याख्यान देने के लिए हमने प्रख्यात इतिहासकार प्रोफेसर वाई वैकुंठम से निवेदन किया, जो उस्मानिया विश्वविद्यालय में इतिहास के प्रोफेसर रहे और काकतिया विश्वविद्यालय वारंगल में कुलपति रहे। प्रोफेसर वैकुंठम ने हमारे निवेदन को पूरी सहृदयता से स्वीकार किया और आज शिक्षा घर की चौखट पर विषय पर वे अपना व्याख्यान देने के लिए यहाँ उपस्थित हैं। सर, हम आपके प्रति हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करते हैं और आपका स्वागत करते हैं। पिछले वर्षों की भांति इस वर्ष भी हमने तय किया कि मुख्य अतिथि भी आएंगे और जब समिति विचार कर रही थी तो पूरी समिति इस बात पर सहमत थी कि इस वर्ष विज्ञान और नैनो तकनीक के सुप्रसिद्ध विद्वान प्रोफेसर एम जगदीश कुमार, जो कि इन दिनों जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय के कुलपति हैं, को आमंत्रित किया जाए। और इस हेतु हमने एक छोटा सा ईमेल उन्हें लिखा, जिसका उन्होंने पूरी सहृदयता से तुरंत जवाब दिया हमें और फिर उनसे मुलाकात भी हुई। आज वे यहाँ उपस्थित हैं। यह जानकर और भी अच्छा लगा कि इग्नू के बारे में उनकी राय बहुत अच्छी है। बहुत सारी चीज़ें वो इग्नू के बारे में जानते हैं और जानना चाहते हैं। आज वे हमारे आमंत्रण को स्वीकार करके हमारे बीच हैं। सर, हम आपका भी हार्दिक स्वागत करते हैं, अभिनंदन करते हैं। आपकी उपस्थिति हमारे लिए अर्थवान और सुखद है। मंच पर हमारे अभिभावक, हमारे माननीय कुलपति प्रोफेसर रविंद्र कुमार भी हैं। इस समय यहाँ जो कुछ भी उज्ज्वल है, जो दिख रहा है, वह सब कुछ प्रोफेसर रविंद्र कुमार की अंतर्दृष्टि, इतिहास दृष्टि और निर्देशन का सुखद परिणाम है। मैं यह आयोजन समिति की ओर से कर सका, हमारी समिति कर सकी, यह सब कुछ उनकी उदारता के नाते संभव हो पाया है। आज पूरे दिन का कार्यक्रम है, जैसा कि आप सब जानते हैं। पूर्वाह्न में हम व्याख्यान सुनेंगे और अपराह्न में जो है वो गीत संध्या है, जहाँ हिंदी के बड़े कवि इन दिनों हिंदी में जो भी उपलब्ध कवि हैं उनमें शिखर के कवियों को हमने आमंत्रित किया है और उन लोगों ने भी हमारा निवेदन स्वीकार किया है। आदरणीय बुद्धिनाथ मिश्र जी आ चुके हैं, बैठे हुए हैं यहाँ पर। तो है प्रोफेसर रविंद्र कुमार के नाते ये संभव हुआ और मैं बराबर कहता भी हूँ कि वे हमारे अपने लोगों में से हैं और उन लोगों में से हैं जिनके अंतःकरण का आयतन बड़ा है, जिनकी सोच की परिधि बड़ी है। सर, मैं आपके मार्गदर्शन के लिए समिति की ओर से हार्दिक कृतज्ञता ज्ञापित करता हूं और इस अवसर पर आपका स्वागत करता हूं। हमारे कुल सचिव साहित्य प्रेमी हैं श्री शिवनंदन कुमार शर्मा जी, मैं उनका भी स्वागत करता हूं। सभागार में उपस्थित आप सभी ने हमारे आमंत्रण का मान रखा, यहाँ उपस्थित हैं, मैं आप सबका हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूँ। और आज व्याख्यान का जो विषय है वह सिर्फ इतिहास का स्मरण मात्र नहीं है, इस विषय में एक नई दुनिया की उच्च शिक्षा की प्रस्तावना भी है। हम सबकी आंखों में शिक्षा के माध्यम से दुनिया को बदलने का स्वप्न है। हम सब नई राहों के अन्वेषी हैं और उम्मीद से भरे हैं। फिराक गोरखपुरी ने कभी कहा था कि फिराक एक नई सूरत निकल तो सकती है, बकौल उस आँख के दुनिया बदल तो सकती है। मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ दुनिया बदल रही है, बदलेगी, हमारी सोच के अनुरूप बदलेगी, सुखद और सुंदर होगी। साहित्य का विद्यार्थी हूँ, उम्मीद का दामन नहीं छोड़ता। आज उम्मीद करता हूँ कि आज के व्याख्यान और जो काव्य संध्या है, इन सबको मिलाकर आज का दिन आपकी स्मृतियों में बना और बचा रहेगा। मैं पुनः आप सबका हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं, अभिनंदन करता हूं। नमस्कार।
अब मैं हमारे माननीय कुलपति प्रोफेसर रविंद्र कुमार से निवेदन करती हूं कि वह यहाँ आएँ और अपना अध्यक्षीय वक्तव्य दें।
नमस्कार। ये अवसर अध्यक्षीय वक्तव्य का है नहीं। हम लोग प्रोफेसर वैकुंठम और प्रोफेसर जगदीश कुमार को सुनने के लिए यहाँ एकत्रित हुए हैं, लेकिन जब इस स्थान पर खड़ा कर दिया गया तो 5 मिनट आपसे बात करना ज़रूरी है। मैं प्रोफेसर वैकुंठम का, प्रोफेसर जगदीश कुमार का और मिसेस राम रेड्डी का बहुत आभारी हूँ कि उन्होंने हमारा निमंत्रण स्वीकार किया और उनके आने से इस अवसर की गरिमा निश्चय रूप से बढ़ी है। मिसेस राम रेड्डी हमारे साथ हर वर्ष होती हैं, ये हमारे लिए बड़े सुख का विषय है कि उन्होंने विश्वविद्यालय को एक परिवार की तरह अपनाया है और इस परिवार के सुख दुख में वे बराबर भागीदार रही हैं। ये विश्वविद्यालय के लिए सौभाग्य की बात है। हम हर वर्ष उनसे निवेदन करते हैं और वो हमारा निवेदन स्वीकार कर यहाँ पर उपस्थित होती हैं। आज भी मिसेस राम रेड्डी यहाँ उपस्थित हैं। आप सबको उनका अभिनंदन करना चाहिए। विश्वविद्यालय में जो कुछ भी होता है वो विश्वविद्यालय के सभी साथियों के संवेद प्रयासों से होता है। ये बात सर्वविदित है। किसी एक व्यक्ति की महत्वाकांक्षा या किसी एक व्यक्ति के प्रयासों से विश्वविद्यालय यदि चल रहा होता तो इस देश के बहुत सारे विश्वविद्यालयों का भविष्य बहुत उज्जवल होता, पर ऐसा है नहीं। इसलिए ये बात सबको मालूम होनी चाहिए कि आप सब जब एक साथ मिलकर इस विश्वविद्यालय के विकास के लिए प्रयास करते हैं तभी विश्वविद्यालय नई और अच्छी ऊंचाइयों को छूता है। हमको इस बात पर गौरव करना चाहिए कि आज से 30-35 वर्ष पहले प्रोफेसर जी राम रेड्डी ने जिस परिकल्पना को संजोया था और इस विश्वविद्यालय की जिस प्रकार स्थापना की थी और जैसा उनके मन में सपना था कि ये विश्वविद्यालय इस तरह निखर कर बाहर आएगा, मैं बहुत पूरे विश्वास के साथ ये कह सकता हूँ कि जैसा उनके मन में सपना था उससे सुंदर विश्वविद्यालय बन गया है, उससे ज़्यादा अच्छा विश्वविद्यालय बन गया है। और उनके प्रतिनिधि के रूप में मिसेस राम रेड्डी यहाँ उपलब्ध हैं। मैं उनको आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूँ कि प्रोफेसर राम रेड्डी के सपने से हम एक कदम भी पीछे नहीं हटे हैं, बल्कि 2-1 कदम आगे ही चले गए हैं। 1985 से शुरू होकर 2017 की लंबी यात्रा है, उस पर चर्चा करना समीचीन नहीं है, लेकिन एक छोटी सी बात कहकर मैं अपने विद्वान वक्ताओं को सुनने के लिए वहाँ बैठ जाऊँगा। विश्वविद्यालय के विद्यार्थियों का जो स्वरूप उनके मन में, प्रोफेसर राम रेड्डी के मन में शुरू में रहा होगा, उससे अब जिस तरह के विद्यार्थी हमारे विश्वविद्यालय में आ रहे हैं उनका स्वरूप बहुत परिवर्तित हो गया है। और ये परिवर्तन खुशी की बात है। ये परिवर्तन हमारे लिए चिंता का विषय नहीं है, ये परिवर्तन खुशी की बात है। इस विश्वविद्यालय की स्थापना हुई थी उन विद्यार्थियों को शिक्षा के सुलभ साधन उपलब्ध कराने के लिए जो शिक्षा के तमाम साधनों से तत्कालीन समय में वंचित रह गए थे। पर आज जिस प्रकार के विद्यार्थी हमारे विश्वविद्यालय में आ रहे हैं वे सब नए उत्साही युवा विद्यार्थी हैं और ऐसे विद्यार्थियों की संख्या बहुत ज़्यादा है जिनको शिक्षा के दूसरे अवसर उपलब्ध हैं पर फिर भी वे इस विश्वविद्यालय के कार्यक्रमों में प्रवेश लेना चाहते हैं। ये विश्वविद्यालय के कार्यक्रमों की विश्वसनीयता और उनकी गुणवत्ता का निश्चित प्रतीक है, इसमें कोई संदेह नहीं है। और ये विश्वसनीयता और ये गुणवत्ता इस विश्वविद्यालय को प्राप्त हुई है आपके संवेद साझा प्रयासों से। कोई भी एक व्यक्ति यदि इसका श्रेय लेना चाहे तो वो निरर्थक होगा। हम सब जानते हैं कि जब तक हम सब मिलकर इस तरह के प्रयास नहीं करते हैं ऐसे कार्यक्रम और इतनी गुणवत्ता वाले नए अकादमिक प्रक्रम हो नहीं पाते हैं। हमारा विद्यार्थी इस समय जो विश्वविद्यालय में प्रवेश ले रहा है वो बहुत उत्साहित है और बड़ी आकांक्षाओं के साथ विश्वविद्यालय आना चाहता है। वो पारंपरिक विश्वविद्यालयों में दी जाने वाली शिक्षा से इतर भी कुछ हासिल करना चाहता है, इसलिए इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विश्वविद्यालय की ओर देखता है। और विश्वविद्यालय में प्रतिवर्ष निरंतर बढ़ती हुई विद्यार्थियों की संख्या इस बात का प्रतीक है कि विश्वविद्यालय के कार्यक्रमों के प्रति विद्यार्थियों में रुचि बढ़ रही है और ऐसे कार्यक्रमों के लिए विद्यार्थियों की रुचि और भी बढ़ रही है जो पारंपरिक विश्वविद्यालयों में सुगमता से उपलब्ध नहीं है। मैं उनकी फहरिस्त नहीं यहाँ सबके सामने रखना चाहता। आप सब परिचित हैं कि किस तरह के कार्यक्रमों में विद्यार्थियों की रुचि है, पर विद्यार्थी नए तरह के कार्यक्रम, नए उपक्रम, नए प्रक्रम, नई तरह के प्रयोग, नई तरह की प्रविधियाँ, इन सब के प्रति अत्यधिक उत्साहित है। और ये हमारे लिए बहुत हर्ष की बात होनी चाहिए कि हमारा विश्वविद्यालय अखिल भारतीय विश्वविद्यालय होने के साथ अखिल भारतीय शिक्षा की आवश्यकताओं को पूरा करने वाला विश्वविद्यालय भी है, निश्चित रूप से है। अपने पिछले कुछ दिनों के कार्यकाल में मुझे बहुत सारे ऐसे लोगों से मिलने का अवसर मिला जो पहले इस विश्वविद्यालय के लिए थोड़े आश्वस्त नहीं थे, सशंकित थे। पर आज मैं आप सबको ये विश्वास दिलाता हूँ कि उनके साथ निरंतर मिलने के बाद उनके मन में विश्वविद्यालय की जो छवि बनी है वो निरंतर उत्तम, अच्छी होती गई है। वो छवि विश्वविद्यालय के प्रति उनके मन में आश्वासन भरती जा रही है और वे इस बात से बहुत उत्साहित हैं कि ये विश्वविद्यालय उन तमाम नई आवश्यकताओं की, शिक्षा की आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति करने के लिए तत्पर है जो इस देश को इस समय चाहिए। आप सब उसमें साझी हैं, ये मेरे लिए बड़े गौरव की बात है। मैं इस विश्वविद्यालय से इतने दिनों से जुड़ा हुआ हूँ, ये मेरे लिए बड़े गौरव की बात है। मैं आप सबका पुनः अभिनंदन करता हूँ और अपने अतिथियों का फिर से स्वागत करता हूँ और उनको सुनने के लिए अब मैं आग्रह करता हूँ।
Thank you so much, sir. You have always inspired and motivated us to work as a team for the betterment of the university. We are honored to have amongst us Professor M. Jagdish Kumar today, Vice Chancellor, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Professor Kumar has attained his educational qualifications from Nalgonda and PhD from IIT Madras. He has done his postdoctoral research from the University of Waterloo and has also served as faculty in various capacities with IIT Delhi and Kharagpur.
प्रोफेसर एम जगदीश कुमार हर प्रकार से शिक्षा जगत में अपना महत्वपूर्ण योगदान देते आ रहे हैं। प्रोफेसर कुमार ने कई महत्वपूर्ण पदों पर कार्य किया है तथा आप एक उत्कृष्ट अन्वेषक भी हैं। आपको IIT दिल्ली में अध्यापन के लिए उत्कृष्टता सम्मान से सम्मानित किया जा चुका है। आपने पहला ISA VSI टेक्नो मेंटर पुरस्कार भी प्राप्त किया है। आप नैनो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में एक अग्रणी शख्सियत हैं और सन 2008 में IBM फैकल्टी पुरस्कार के प्राप्तकर्ता भी हैं। सर, आपसे अनुरोध कि आप यहाँ आएँ और हमें सुनने का अवसर दें।
You don't have? Can I detach this and use?
Yes, sir.
It connected. Right. Wait. No, there's no sound. Sound is good. Don't press anything. So, this is a problem with technology. Right. Good morning. I would like to thank IGNOU Vice Chancellor for Professor Ravindra Kumar for inviting me here to talk to you briefly. Since we are all teachers, I thought I will talk very briefly about teaching and learning. You know, all of us, we would like to be a good teacher. And as a teacher, we would like to improve the cognitive skills of our students. But beyond that, we also want our students to acquire not only their professional goals, but also their ethical and civic goals. And in many colleges and universities, you will find that there are few professors who are admired by the students, who are respected by the colleagues. And all of us would like to become such professor wonders. Why is it so? Why is it that we need to focus on creating good teachers in the universities and the colleges. After all, it is this community, the teaching community, which will produce good human resources in order to build a sustainable, equitable, and peaceful society. And if we want to become a good teacher and create a good learning teaching environment in the classroom, what is that we can do? Some of those issues I'm going to discuss with you as part of this brief lecture. You know that during the last 30 years, when compared to last 300 years, there have been significant changes in the way that we live. Experts say that since the beginning of human societies, human race, human societies have undergone such transformational changes, maybe for twice or thrice or so. Today, we are in the midst of one such significant transformational change. And all of us know that the inventions and the breakthroughs that take place in physics, genetics, and information technology, they are affecting our lives. In fact, most of the economies of the countries in the world are decided by the technological innovations and scientific breakthroughs. But however, we also see profound changes. For example, falling birth rates, increasing life expectancy, aging societies, and so on. And today, we lead such environmentally unsustainable lifestyles, because our lifestyles are more dependent on fossil energies. Our economical and financial institutes are becoming unstable. And this, unfortunately, is bringing more disparities between the poor and the rich, between the developed and undeveloped, between literate and illiterate, and so on. Today, in fact, humanity faces the biggest challenges it has ever faced. You heard about climate change. You heard about the reduced biodiversity, the increased soil infertility, increased addition of the poisonous chemicals in our food chain, and so on. Today, almost every society across the world, they suffer from major health problems. It could be heart problems, it could be sugar problems, it could be anxiety, it could be several other stress-related issues, in spite of the best medical facilities that we have. So therefore, today, we can no longer go on with the attitude of business as usual. But then, what can we do if such a thing happens? Now, you know that technology is changing very rapidly, and it is affecting our lifestyles. I wanted to give you here one example. The TVs, of course, have become thinner, and it is also affecting us. The arrow there is, of course, unintentional, but it's affecting the way we live. And you see, kids, of course, learn much faster. All of us know that. And if you recognize that fellow, he is a professor from IIT Delhi. Now, of course, he is in JNU. And he tells his son, you do my website and I will do your homework. Now, kids are very, very fast in learning. And it's also changing the way we live. For example, here, this is a common phenomena that we see in every house. Everybody is busy with their own devices. And here there is a father and mother. They are writing a message to their son. Dear Andy, how have you been? Your mother and I are fine. We miss you. Please sign off your computer and come downstairs for something to eat. Love, Dad. This is how technology is affecting us. And here there are two saints discussing with each other about life. And one of them says, blame it on the materialistic life I had. But whenever I meditate on the secrets of longevity, I cannot think beyond lithium polymer rechargeable batteries. And 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if somebody is drowning, something like this, we would have jumped into the lake to save that person. But this is what we do today, which is very unfortunate. And you see, a baby has just come out and the mother is saying, doctor, please tell me, boy or girl, I want to update the status on Facebook. You see, so then if technology is changing so rapidly the way we live today, what is that we can do in order to face the challenges that the humanity is facing today. Experts, of course, they say that we need to be lifelong learners. We need to do more research, more innovation. But unfortunately, just innovating more and more in a linear way is not going to help us in facing the challenges that we face today. In fact, what we should be doing is we should be focusing more on quality of life than standard of living. We should be focusing more on spiritual development than just the materialistic security. We should think about relational care than competition. We should identify, we should recognize the importance of protecting the environment, and then unity in diversity. We must accept the cultural diversity rather than playing identity politics. And most importantly, we must for social justice rather than just being dominant. But why is that our focus has moved away from this? Why is that we have become the people that I have shown in the previous slides? We all know that today we have become too individualistic. And this is what has happened. We have moved from abundance to scarcity. There is so much of cutthroat competition amongst ourselves. And this has happened because our emphasis is more on scientific discoveries and technological innovations. You know that to be scientific means to be rational. But when you are rational, it will also rob away from you the neutral values such as love, compassion, and a sense of sharing. If that happens, when we become too individualistic, self-centered, social theory, of course, tells us that such persons cannot contribute anything for the common good of the society. Today, in fact, we have become what is known as curiosity-driven, pleasure-seeking human animals. This takes away from us to be prudent, to be self-aware in building a better society. So, therefore, what should we do? Today, our world gives so much of importance to wealth creation. Wealth creation by itself is not wrong. But however, we have started taking the profit-driven innovators as the role models for the societal development. On the other hand, what we need is the passion, the intrinsic motivation, and a sense of sharing. That is what we must be spreading among our students. So when I walk into the classroom, when you walk into the classroom, the students look at you as a role model for something that they can learn other than what is already available to them. But how do we do that? In order to do that, in order to become this Professor Big Wonder, so that we can transform the lives of our students, so that they can go and become vehicles for the development of the society. What do we do? How can we do that? First of all, when I discuss with many of my younger colleagues, I find that most of them, they are not aware of their teaching philosophy. I would like to very briefly tell you what exactly is it. What is your conception of teaching when I walk into the classroom? How do you want to transform the students? How do you set the goals and values for the education that you are going to impart? And how do you understand the interaction between learning and teaching in the classroom? And what are your perceptions as a teacher of your role and the student's role in the entire gamut of this teaching process? In order to understand, very briefly, I want to put before you, a very, very important aspect. As a teacher, as an individual, if I am trying to transform the lives of my students, first of all, I should have a positive lifestyle, a positive attitude towards my life. And most of us know that happiness is not something that we can search and find it. Happiness is a product of how we conduct ourselves in our life. Happiness is something that you see commonly in a person who is self-confident, who is very, very confident. Now, unfortunately, why we are unable to develop a positive lifestyle is because we often don't realize the inner potential that we have. As a teacher, if I want to impart this positive lifestyle to my students, first of all, I need to understand what is the inner potential I have. And then what is the purpose of life? This is something that we need to understand. The beginning point, of course, is to find your passions. Convert those passions into skills and become an important expert in a given area and serve the real needs of the world. If you can find out this sweet point between your passions, skills, and serving the real needs of the world, that is when you will find that you have found a purpose in life. In order to do that, we must set goals. Most of us in our life, setting goals is something that we take very lightly. We often don't know what kind of goals that we can have. Can we have a long-term goal? Can we have a short-term goal? Is the goal that I set for myself, is it realizable or not realizable? Most of us are confused. And then if I set a goal, I must work hard in order to convert that goal into a skill. You know, if I have one skill, if I have a second skill, it will have a multiplying effect. And if I have a skill, then I can become an expert. Whether you like it or not, all of us like experts. How do I become an expert? Let's say I'm among a group of students. I know a little bit more than others. Now, if I keep speaking about that, if others start appreciating, that will motivate me even to be a better learner. I will go and learn even more and become an expert. So it is important that as a teacher, all of us, we develop a positive lifestyle by doing many of these things. If you want to become a good teacher, if I want to become a good teacher, ultimately it depends on what identity I have developed for myself, what value system that I have within myself. How do I do that? You see, what we believe in, who we are, and what assumptions we hold about the students, about this entire world, how we interact with our students, what we do in the classroom, all these things will build our identity, it will make us acquire a certain set of values. Now, in order to understand how we develop our identity and values, I want to pose a couple of philosophical questions. Often we think that philosophy is very abstract. If I ask philosophical questions, how does it help me in resolving my everyday problems? What is it got to do with the teaching in the classroom? But however, even if you have that doubt in your mind, I would like to ask a couple of philosophical questions. What is real? This is the most fundamental question that we ask in philosophy. And the second question that we ask is, how do I know what I know? The third most important question in philosophy, what we ask is, what is worthy and what do I value? Now let me look very briefly at what is real. You know, when I question what is real, there are several issues that we need to see. How do I understand the reality? When I walk into the classroom, I am trying to help the students understand the reality, which is perpetual, which is a construction of subjective and objective thinking. So if I had to make my students understand this reality, whichever subject that you are teaching, I need to get information. Cosmology, the events that happen in the universe tell something about the reality. And the nature of human beings, anthropology, it tells us something about the reality of the universe. And then the nature of divinity, theology tells us. And the meaning of very existence of ourselves, ontology. Now, these are questions that we are constantly trying to tell our students. How do I tell them? For example, do I tell my students that human nature is constant, knowledge is timeless, or do I tell my students that human nature is changing, the world is a subjective construct? Do I tell my students that humans are intrinsically good, they are altruistic, or humans are driven by self-interest? what is real? How do I make my students understand reality in the classroom? So this is one important question. The second question, of course, is how do I know what I know? This is something that we are constantly telling, whether you are teaching mathematics, whether you are teaching political science or electrical engineering. How do I know what I know? Because this is what will tell us. This is a metaphysical question. This tells us about, is the knowledge that I have gained given by God? Is the knowledge told by some expert? Or is it something that I have gained through individual reasoning? Or has it come through my sensory perception? Or has it come through intuition? It is all about the theory of knowledge. How do I know what I know? Because when the students are learning in the classroom, when you want to test the knowledge of the students, do you emphasize more on the intuition of the students? Do you tell the students you must read only from this textbook? How do you design your tests and exams in order to test the knowledge of the students? For example, your understanding, my understanding of how do I know what I know will decide what kind of question paper I will set. Very often we don't realize the connection between this philosophical question and the way I test my students. For example, if I ask my students only multiple questions, the answer is fixed. There is no other alternative. So I am telling that this is the authority, this is the textbook answer. But if I tell the students that you can work in a group, so I am indicating indirectly to the students that information from multiple sources is welcome. Information, if there is an ambiguity in the information, that is perfectly fine. You see, therefore, it is important that we think about these philosophical questions when we enter into the classroom. The third and most important thing is, what is worthy and what do I value? This is a question most of us, we don't really think consciously. Unconsciously, this thinking goes on in our mind, and that is how we acquire an identity and a set of values. And why is this question important for us? Because I need to know the worthiness of the knowledge that I have acquired, because that is what gives me the strength, the ability to make a judgment, to distinguish between good and the bad. But in order to do that, I must address the nature of the value of this knowledge. How do I address that? This can be done only if I think about the ethical framework under which all of us function and the aesthetics part. When we talk about the ethics, all of you know that the ethical framework consists of utilitarian ethics, justice ethics, and virtue ethics. These ethics assume that the values are universal. These ethics assume rational thinking. In other words, I will set a question paper which is uniform to everybody without really worrying about the intrinsic potential of the individual students. But if I look at the care ethics, this is contextual, this is relational. If I follow this ethical model, I know that there are some students who are fast learners, there are some students who are slow learners, there are some students who can crack very difficult problems, but there are some students who can write an essay. So I can take care of everybody's capabilities if I understand what kind of ethical framework I am following. The other important thing is the aesthetics. Often we don't really pay attention to aesthetics, because in aesthetics, what is it actually? In aesthetics, we emphasize on sensory experiences and the feelings that are aroused in us as a result of the sensory experiences. If you focus more on aesthetics in your classroom, perhaps you emphasize with your students, you may tell your students to have a play in the classroom, or you may emphasize with your students to touch and feel something, so that they learn from the sensory experiences. So it is very, very important that we have an ethical framework. We emphasize on the aesthetics part of the ethical framework, so that we treat our students better. You see, the reason why I am telling all these things is that often when we want to become a good teacher and transform the thinking process of our students, we don't realize that becoming a good teacher is eminently individual. It is eminently a personal experience. You cannot really attend a workshop, you cannot really read a thick book and become an excellent teacher. It has to be a lifelong journey, and it has to be based more on the philosophical aspects of teaching. I'll give you, before I conclude my lecture, one example. Is air matter? That is a question I pose. If I approach this problem from the scientific point of view, one simple experiment will prove that air is matter. But if I have to approach from a philosophical point of view, how do I approach? How do I prove? How do I argue out that air is indeed matter, or air is indeed not matter? In order to approach a problem philosophically, we must first make a claim. For example, I make the claim that air is matter. That is the claim I make. Then I must provide evidence. I take a balloon and I do it, and the balloon becomes bigger. So I have provided the evidence. And then how do I prove that air is actually matter? I drop the balloon and it goes down. That means the balloon has weight. Weight is a property of the matter. Therefore, air is matter. So that is the philosophical way of approaching a problem. But how you approach, how you make a claim, how do you construct the evidence, and how you reason out to connect that air is actually matter is indeed a philosophical experience. In everyday, unconsciously, we are doing this. For example, if there is a mob lynching, how do you view this problem? Mob lynching. Do you think this as an underlying nature of the human beings? Or do you see that as a constructed event, a motivated event? It all depends on your philosophical approach to the problems that we face in life. And as a teacher, I believe that it is very, very important for us to keep our attention on the philosophical aspects of teaching if you want to become a wonderful teacher and transform the lives of the societies. But that said, it doesn't mean that we cannot really learn some good aspects of teaching. There are always shared experiences that one can learn from an experienced teacher. But those are only cosmetic. If you want to change your own inner personality, if you want to acquire your own identity and a set of values, it has to be a lifelong journey. I thought I will share some of these issues with you because most of you are teachers here, and all of us, our main objective is that we are passionate about teaching and we want to transform the lives of the students. Thank you very much.
Felicitations. Thank you so much, sir, for a captivating lecture and your thoughts on the aspects of teaching and learning. We are really grateful and thankful to you.
प्रोफेसर जी राम रेड्डी को विनम्र श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करने के लिए हमारी मीडिया टीम ने एक वृत्तचित्र बनाया है। हम अपनी मीडिया टीम के आभारी हैं और अब हम उनसे निवेदन करते हैं कि वो कृपया उस वृत्तचित्र का प्रदर्शन करें जिसका शीर्षक है ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन फ्रॉम डिस्टेंस लर्निंग टू डिजिटल लर्निंग।
We are very proud to have our own electronic media production center at the Indira Gandhi National Open University. And they have worked really very hard for the production of this film on Professor G. Ram Reddy and the vision of IGNOU. May I request the Team EMPC to relay the film.
Digitalization is transforming young India. The seeds of distance education were sown successfully in 1982 under the able guidance of Professor G. Ram Reddy. It was under his leadership in the year 1985 that the Indira Gandhi National Open University became a pioneer university in the field of distance education that showed the path of progress to the present 13 state open universities of India.
The census 2011 states that half of India's population is in the age group of 20 to 59 years. In 2016, mobile phone subscribers have reached approximately 1 billion. Smartphone users are 125 million and internet users are 465 million. This drastic change in information and communication technology has made distance education more adaptive to the IT revolution. Distance education has left no stone unturned in fulfilling Professor G. Ram Reddy's vision of education at your doorstep and reaching the unreached.
In the 21st century, digitalization has proved as a boon for our country. It is now a tale of hope and a tale of success to reach the unreached. IGNOU is the only university reaching nearly 3 million learners through the internet, mobile, radio, television, teleconferencing and print material.
IGNOU has responded with commitment to the initiatives of the Government of India. Our success story is certainly path-breaking and historic. The initiatives undertaken by IGNOU are endless. Now, IGNOU has become the first university to go cashless. Our admission, registration and revaluation have become online.
Kendriya Vidyalayas have been designated as our exam centers for the first time in the history of our university, thereby extending the reach. The most recent initiative of IGNOU is the introduction of paperless admit card. The learners will now be free from carrying the hall tickets in paper card form. IGNOU's regional centers will also serve as Aadhaar card registration centers, which has added a feather in the cap of the university.
The IGNOU website is a gateway for our learners to avail the latest and constantly updated information of our university, ranging from date sheet, declaration of results, seminars, conferences and campus placement activities. The admission process has been digitized and is more learner-friendly. The admissions are now at the click of a button. The mark sheets and hall tickets can be downloaded anytime and anywhere.
The IGNOU library is now completely digitalized. Based on the concept of e-learning, the learners can now access study materials and journals through digital indexing. IGNOU regional centers have acquired a modern outlook and will be coming up as digital learning centers. This will be an employment generator for local resource persons.
To reach the unreached, IGNOU has taken initiatives of the Gyan Vani FM radio stations, Gyan Darshan educational TV channels, Gyan Dhara web radio, open education resources, satellite communication technology, e-services and training in new technologies. IGNOU study materials have been compiled in a knowledge repository, that is, the National Virtual Library, the e-Gyankosh.
I would request our guests to please come to the dais. IGNOU has now become the world's largest open university. In terms of quality of study material and the outreach to our students, we stand a class apart. I would take this opportunity to very proudly announce that one of our students has cleared the civil services examination and has been selected to the IAS of the 2016 batch by securing the 88th rank. I welcome Mr. Hemant Sati amongst us today. Mr. Sati has graduated from the Hemwati Nandan Bahuguna Garhwal University, and he sought admission into IGNOU's MA History program in 2012 at our Dehradun Regional Center. This reflects the unflinching faith of our student fraternity in the quality of education being offered by IGNOU, which can undoubtedly take them to the pinnacle of professional success. I welcome Mr. Hemant Sati once again, and I would now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to please felicitate Mr. Hemant Sati with a token of appreciation for qualifying this prestigious examination.
सफलता की यह परंपरा हमारे विश्वविद्यालय में विगत कई वर्षों से है। पूर्व में भी हमारे छात्र भारतीय प्रशासनिक सेवाओं और विभिन्न उत्कृष्ट महत्वपूर्ण सेवाओं में चयनित होते आ रहे हैं। हम सब ये आशा करते हैं, कामना करते हैं कि छात्रों की सफलता का यह क्रम निरंतर चलता रहे, वो यूं ही सफल होते रहें, अपना नाम, हमारे इस विश्वविद्यालय का नाम रोशन करते रहें और समाज के लिए एक जिम्मेदार नागरिक बने।
I would request Mr. Hemant Sati to please say a few words.
धन्यवाद। आज इस सभागार में अपने आप को पाकर मैं गौरवान्वित महसूस कर रहा हूं और 22वां जो प्रोफेसर जी राम रेड्डी सभागार में जो ये व्याख्यान है, इसमें मुझे सम्मान पाने का जो हक मिला है, इसमें बहुत बड़ी भूमिका IGNOU संस्थान की भी रही है, क्योंकि जो IGNOU का जब मैंने ग्रेजुएशन अपना पास किया तो आफ्टर ग्रेजुएशन मुझे ये चीज़ हुआ कि मैंने अपना पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन मैं कहाँ से करूं। तो उसके बाद मुझे IGNOU के विषय में पता चला कि IGNOU के द्वारा जो स्टडी मटेरियल प्रोवाइड करवाया जाता है, जो भी IGNOU की बुक्स हैं, ये काफ़ी हेल्पफुल होती है। तो उसके बाद मैंने अपना IGNOU में एडमिशन लिया और मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा IGNOU संस्थान को कि मेरी सफलता केवल IGNOU की मेरी सफलता नहीं बल्कि इसमें बहुत बड़ी भूमिका IGNOU की भी है। और ज़्यादा समय न लेते हुए आप लोगों का धन्यवाद, पूरे IGNOU परिवार का धन्यवाद।
प्लानिंग एंड डॉक्यूमेंटेशन डिवीज़न ने पूर्व की भांति इस वर्ष भी एक डॉक्यूमेंट तैयार किया है जिसका शीर्षक है एक्सपैंडिंग एक्सेस टू हायर एजुकेशन थ्रू ODL वॉल्यूम 2। इस अवसर का लाभ उठाते हुए अब मैं प्लानिंग एंड डॉक्यूमेंटेशन डिवीज़न के बेहद कर्मठी एवं प्रगतिशील निदेशक प्रोफेसर TU फुलझले को आमंत्रित करती हूँ कि वो इस मंच पर आएँ और इस डॉक्यूमेंट से हम सबको अवगत कराएँ। इसके बाद मैं अपने गणमान्य अतिथियों से और मंचासीन सभी व्यक्तियों से अनुरोध करूंगी कि इस डॉक्यूमेंट का वो लोकार्पण करें।
ऑनरेबल वाइस चांसलर प्रोफेसर रविंद्र कुमार, प्रोफेसर वैकुंठम, प्रोफेसर जगदीश कुमार, मिसेस राम रेड्डी, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. Friends, you know that for any effective, accurate, or sound management decisions, database is very important. And that is what, after my joining of taking over as a director of planning, I decided that there is a need of database for these universities on various activities. And therefore this volume 2, which we are going to release just now, is the database of the admissions which is taking place at the various regional centers. In this volume, we have given the data of each regional center, year-wise, program-wise, level-wise, and in some cases course-wise. So it is a very big database, and in this volume also, we have given the little analysis in each of the regional centers, and I would like to tell that there is very interesting findings we have observed in the analysis. Like you take the example of Agartala and Guwahati. We observe that in Agartala and Guwahati, our certificate programs are in more demand. And if you go in Chhattisgarh, Raipur regional centers, we observe that our diploma programs are very popular and most of the students go for diploma programs. Whereas, if we go for Ranchi, Koraput, Raghunathganj, and Port Blair, we noted that our degree programs are very popular. And if you go in Srinagar, we noted that our master programs are very important. Most of 58% students go for our master programs. So these are the few observations, because there is a detailed analysis of each and every regional center in that volume. There are 2 volumes. First volume was inaugurated in the national seminar which was organized by our Noida Regional Center, and this is volume 2. Just we are going to release, and these 2 pattern of all the 2 volumes is the same, region-wise, year-wise, program-wise, and course-wise, but it is divided in 2 parts because we have taken the regional centers which were started in the initial years, that is since the inception of the university to up to 2000. That is volume 1, and volume 2, which are going to release now, that is the regional centers which are established after 2001 to up to 2016. Our officers, Dr. Neelam Chaudhary, Mr. Girija Shankar, Sunil Kumar, and one data entry operator, they have put a lot of hard work in that. If they are there, I request them, they can come here. Please come. These are the 2 officers, and I think Sunil Kumar is not there. They have taken a lot of pain and put hard work in that volume which we are going to release, and let us give a big hand to them for their hard work. Before also we have published one volume, that is 3 Decades of Distance Education, which was released last year, and one more volume, it was Nurturing the Social Equality Through Distance Education. These 2 volumes were released last year only, and that volumes are very appreciated, and there is a lot of demand for those volumes. And those volumes are referred in so many international journals by our faculty, and I hope all the 4 volumes, last year's 2 volumes and these are the 2 volumes, so that will be very helpful to all our students, researchers, administrators, faculty, and administrators, and even for our statutory bodies, which takes decision from time to time. Only thing, we have to read those volumes, then only we will do something. Secondly, we are ready with another volume, which will be going to the printing in the next week. That is, now we want, that volume is very important. That is pass out percentage. Many of the queries comes from the ministry, various ministries, and we get a lot of parliament questions on that, how many students are passed from particular area for particular programs. So time to time we get the parliament questions, RTIs, and then so many letters from the various regulatory bodies asking the various information. So that is why we have decided to come out with the volume of the pass out percent since the inception of the university. That will be, that is under pipeline. And one more volume, I am planning that since last 20 years we have not gone for the volume, which was published by the Professor Naidu and later Pillai, that the economics of the distance education. So we have already planned and that is going on. And I am very much thankful to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, who is very helpful and constantly encouraging for publication, for these all publications. And he support everywhere and in each and every matter. That is why we are able to do something for this preparing database of this university. And I am very much thankful to Professor Sahani and Girdhar and Tilak, who were very helpful in getting the printout of all these volumes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob.
I would request our honorable guests to please. It is indeed an achievement for the Indira Gandhi National Open University to publish such a thorough document. We are indeed privileged to have with us today Professor Y. Vaikuntham, a renowned historian and former Vice Chancellor, Kakatiya University. Professor Vaikuntham is a doctorate in history and has served as Professor of History and Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, Osmania University. He has been a member of various important projects and organizations like the Committee of the Eminent Persons of Setu Samudram Ship Channel Project, member of the Indian Council of Historical Research, Raja Ram Mohan Roy Library Foundation, etc.
प्रोफेसर वाई वैकुंठम किसी परिचय के मोहताज नहीं हैं, एक बेहद ही प्रख्यात इतिहासकार। वह 9 वर्षों तक साउथ इंडियन हिस्ट्री कांग्रेस के महासचिव रहे हैं और 1998 में इसके अध्यक्ष भी रह चुके हैं। अपने व्यक्तित्व, अध्ययन, अध्यापन और शोध के माध्यम से आपने शिक्षा जगत की भरपूर सेवा की है। सर, आज आपको यहाँ पाकर हम धन्य हैं। आपसे अनुरोध कि आप यहाँ आएँ।
Chairperson of this program, Professor Ravindra Kumar, Vice Chancellor of IGNOU, Professor Jagdish Kumar, Vice Chancellor of JNU, Professor S.K. Sharma ji, Professor Srivastava, Madam Pramila Ramareddy garu, scholars and professors, teaching and non-teaching community, and invitees. I feel very happy and honored, but at the same time, I'm also emotional and nervous too, for the simple reason, Professor Ramareddy garu happens to be our teacher. He was my role model. when I was studying my MA in Usmania University, he was on the faculty. And all his steps, his research, publications, building of the institutions, and his contribution multiple ways, that has really not only impressed us, motivated us, inspired us, and what I am today, certainly a major portion goes to him. And Madam also, like my mother, always encourages us. And right from 1965, I am closely knowing Professor Reddy Garu. Therefore, I am a little bit emotional, and also I am nervous to speak about my own guru and his contribution. And at the same time, some of the issues which I am going to talk about are known to you, because there are two important things which I felt: his contribution to the conventional education and his contribution to distance learning. And in addition, his contribution to the building of number of institutions at various levels. And the finest contribution at the last stage was the NAC also. All these things makes us to be very proud of his contribution and very proud of him. And he's a role model for us. He's a great teacher for us. And most of you may be knowing, but still I mention on this day, because it happens to be Memorial Day, where I'm a little bit emotional. But in any case, Professor Ram Reddy Garu was, you know, is a product of Usmania University, a product of London School of Economics, where he did his MSc. And he was the Vice Chancellor of Usmania University subsequently. And then he became the Vice, that means between 1977 to 1982. And from 1982 to 85, he was the first Vice Chancellor of AP Open University. Then 85 to 90, you know better, and also I know a little bit, because I'm also partially and now and then associating with the university as the first Vice Chancellor of IGNOU. Then he became the chairman, Vice Chairman of Commonwealth of Learning, Vancouver. And then he became chairman of University Grants Commission, and then chairman of ICSSR. And in many other roles, he has contributed to build the institutions, and particularly open learning was a subject of his heart, and ultimately he was emotionally committed to this, because if some of the incidents which we know in Usmania University, how he wanted to start this open learning system in the university, it is quite impressive. So that I will come slightly later. Then, as Professor Reddy is one of the towering personalities, because you can cite very few names in the history which can be compared to Professor Ram Reddy Garu. And you can verify few names in India whom you can describe as institutional builder, and that too in education. And yes, Professor Ram Reddy Garu was one such towering personality. IGNOU remembers this every year. And the presence of Madam is an occasion, on this occasion is every year is itself is something memorable. And Professor Ram Reddy Garu is a strict disciplinarian, a role model, inspiring teacher, a creative researcher in local self-government and public policy. Most of you may be knowing. And in Usmania University, as well as in PG Center at Warangal, where he contributed immensely, these subjects were very dear to him, and his research continued. And also he held a number of positions in addition to the vice chancellorships which I was mentioning. And then Professor Ram Reddy Garu also, and his ideas reflected everywhere, and his friends and well-wishers always feel his personality was so great, as you all know, was to take on himself not only the burden of the institution, but also the tensions of his friends and colleagues, and never showed or reflected these things on others, which friends and well-wishers feel must have affected his health and life, and might have been responsible for his premature demise at the age of early 66, completed 65. And when his experience would have contributed immensely to education system in general, and higher education and research in particular in India, and in this crucial period. This day, the open learning system is facing challenges, which every one of us know, because open learning, though it is one of the great institutions which is ultimately going to impart education to the millions of people, because which the conventional education which is not reaching all of them, either maybe housewives, maybe employees, maybe dropouts, or maybe financially, and many other things, but IGNOU and the distance education is providing great opportunities. So I thought of talking on my own researches, which I was doing in the last couple of years, particularly on the natural resources and environmental history. The books are in publication, and also cultural history of erstwhile Hyderabad state. But then I loudly thought that, and also on the advice of my friends here, and distance learning, that means education to the doorstep, and then transformation from correspondence courses to distance learning, where I can share some ideas how Professor Ramareddy Garu tried from more or less from 1970s to introduce these systems in Hyderabad itself, in Usmania University itself, and later on AP Open University and others. But in any case here, his personality was so great, as you all know. This is what we could see. He was not only the founder, but can be considered as the father of distance learning in India. To look back, external examinations which were in operation from the dawn of independence to provide opportunity to discontinued, failed, and aspiring students for improvement of educational qualifications got very limited opportunities under the mode, that is external examinations and other things. But national policy on education in 1968 laid stress on the, I quote, need for a radical reconstruction of the education system, unquote, to improve the quality as at all stages up to the given level, irrespective of caste, creed, location, sex, or gender, and having access to education of a comparative quality. This is one which was missing, and through this method, they can be reached. And that is where the inputs of distance mode, distance learning is very important. The policy was to equalize educational opportunities in order to achieve national integration and a greater cultural and economic development. The policy envisaged was to promote three-language formula, that is in 1968, free and compulsory education up to 14 years, adoption of Hindi as a national language, and allocation of 6% of the GDP for the development of education. But still, the system could not reach all sections of the people in spite of these cherished goals. This is one thing which we have to remember, because it could not reach. However, this system continued to work for long, that is the so-called external examinations and these things. The increasing population, low literacy rate in higher education kept the aspiring students improve their qualifications. Were absolutely disappointed, because it could not go to the countryside, and the villages are not in a position to receive its benefits. The government gave a serious look to their requirements and took up the cause for better in introducing correspondence courses, and Delhi University took the initiative in early 1970 and tried to rather reach out to many of the aspiring youth and women. And consequently, number of universities, about 19 universities have taken up this model, but still this mode could not provide greater opportunities to the increasing population and the youth. Hence, the government was in search of more progressive mode to reach all sections with inclusive policy. The alternative was distance learning, that is what we think. However, the government, as discussed, also had number of policy initiatives. And the policy initiates, particularly the University Education Commission of 1948-49, Secondary Education Commission of 1952-53, Kothari Commission of 1964-66, and few other things could not give the leads for quantitative as well as qualitative expansion of higher education in India. External students who were not regular students pursued with the university correspondence courses, and their training was from many tutorial colleges too. Neither the system could reach popular demand, nor they could get quality material except some cyclostyle notes of substandard. So this made the governments also to ponder over the entire issue. The growing population, increasing social distances and economic disparities and class differences deprived youth from going to the schools and colleges. The changing social context of education as well as national concerns for achieving the goals of equality and inclusion demanded changed approach to education for, I quote, enhancing opportunities of all learners to become successful in their learning experiences and making all educational institutions sensitive and responsive to the learners' needs too. Ensure equitable educational outcome for all. However, Indian society was divided into many levels of categories with new emerging classes. Conventional education introduced by the British, naturally they were not concerned about the welfare of the people. Therefore, the earlier colonial model of the Western model could not reach, in spite of these loud and cherished goals which the government of India was expecting. But in this particular period, in the contemporary world, lifelong education has been regarded as the determinant of literary society. To improve the quality of life as well as natural, human, social, economic development, educational development was necessary. If India has to compete globally and emerge as a developed nation, it was to improve the quality of human resources through well-defined lifelong educational policies and programs. In this particular period, the government of India appointed G. Parthasarathi, the former Vice Chancellor of JNU, and 8-member committee look into and ultimately propose what alternatives can be thought of. But simultaneously when this was going on, interestingly, and number of countries world over, they have started their own distance universities and modes. Of them, Pakistan in 1974, China in 1979, France in 1939, South Africa in 1973, Spain in 1972, India in 1982, but this is a later story, but not in 74, UK in 1969, and Spain in 1972, and so on and so forth. So these models also made the government of India to think of, and also those educationists to think of the alternative mode which can influence the Indian scenario. And it has been generally said, out of 100, 20 did not go to the school, and 55 dropouts, and 25 only go to the 8th class, and at that level, available seats of 70 to 80% were higher income groups, and mostly from urban centers. So this is the scenario in which they have to think of the educational changes to reach out to all. And urban people had access to good education, including higher education. There was vast difference between urban and rural education, even in the inputs as well as other things, including availability of teachers. Though some of the teachers in the rural place were excellent, but still mass education was not in the reach of everyone. Many countries have distance education system to provide education, which I was just now mentioning. And there were 14 distance educational universities in Soviet Union. And in China, by 1982, there were about 280,000 students, workers, government employees, technical experts, and who were supported by the digital computers were in use. And the most important model which could influence our thinking was the British Open University, and which has been started in 1969. And Harold Wilson from 1964 has initiated this measure, and earlier this was under discussion, but ultimately it is he who has taken the initiative and was responsible for the starting of Open University in London and in England in 1969. This could influence Asian countries, this could influence many, and particularly a person like Professor Ramareddy Garu, who was in London School of Economics, naturally followed meticulously these things. And at this particular period, there were a number of articles in 1970s which have become, one is Termi Tanstall in 1974, titling it as Open University Opens. And the Open University from Within by John Ferguson in 1975, Open University by Walter Perry in 1976, How Open is Open by Woodley, and in few other articles which were in circulation and published in England. And that were available for us, and ultimately this was the time when the Parthasarathi Committee was working. And then Usmania University, when Professor Ramareddy became the Vice Chancellor in 1977, and at that time we were thinking of all these things, and he was thinking of all these things. And in fact, the Parthasarathi Committee, which could not do the ultimate because of the developments which most of us know, the emergency and subsequent political uncertainties and agitations and assassination of the Prime Minister at that time, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and many other things has hampered this progress and also initiating the open and distance education. Similarly, at this particular stage, even in Andhra Pradesh, particularly in 1977, Professor Ramareddy Garu thought of, and ultimately at that government, at that particular period, then Home Minister Bhavanam Venkatram of Andhra Pradesh, he wanted these ideas to be implemented. And Professor Ramareddy Garu was the right person, and he shared these ideas with the minister. But however, from 77, it could not materialize. But when he became the Chief Minister after a couple of years, change of administration in Andhra Pradesh, and Professor Ramareddy Garu has been asked to, and ultimately he was responsible for the submission of the report and starting of AP Open University in 1982. And the entire credit goes to Professor Ramareddy Garu at this stage. But more than this, one more important thing which I would like to share with you, probably many of you may be knowing or may not be, I do not know, but in Usmania University, when in 1977 his plan of open university was unlikely to come and are delayed, our political part, that means the government in power, was not taken initiative, then he thought of starting a open education college in Usmania University as an autonomous college, where he wanted to see this can, though the degrees will be awarded by Usmania University, but it will have its own courses and it will reach out to most of the people in the nook and corner, and ultimately this college can be a model for the subsequent development. But when these things were going on in 1980, again, as I said, change of government and ultimately initiatives by the government, then Chief Minister, and Professor Ramareddy Garu was responsible for the establishment of this university, Andhra Pradesh Open University. Fortunately, Ramareddy Garu was associated with eminent people also. Eminent, he was telling without hesitation, I was privileged to head this committee as the chairman, when 4 former vice chancellors of the Andhra Pradesh, they were members of this committee. One is B. Ramachandra Rao, former vice chairman of University Grants Commission, and B. Sarveshwar Rao, former vice chancellor of Nagarjuna University, Professor M.R. Apparao, former vice chancellor of Andhra University, and Chandramouli Reddy, education secretary. All of them were the members, and Professor Ramareddy was the chairman. And on his recommendation, this committee has ultimately recommended for the establishment of Open University in Andhra Pradesh. And another great thing was, the entire process has been just completed in 2 months. And the bill has been passed, and within 2 days, this has been inaugurated by the President of India. And in a couple of days, that is to give the actual dates, and on August 24th, the bill was submitted before the Assembly. That means the report has been submitted to the Assembly, and it has been approved by Assembly. And on 26th August 1982, President of India inaugurated it, probably the fastest approval one can think of in a parliamentary history, parliamentary democracy. In just 2 days, the entire process, inauguration by the President of India, has taken place. In any case, though this has been accepted, and Professor Ramareddy Garu has been appointed as the Vice Chancellor in November 1982. Till such time, he was the Vice Chancellor of Usmania University. And the reports have been prepared as the Vice Chancellor of Usmania University. And these ideas were very much known to him. And at the same time, he was also discussing with some of the eminent persons from British Open University, who have been invited and with whom he had consultations before he drafted these things and placed before the committee. And this is one major foundation where he became not only the founder, but also the creator of an open learning system in India. And from there, from 82 to 85, he was the Vice Chancellor. While being the Vice Chancellor, he has been asked to associate with this distance education. He became special officer and then prepared the report. And K.C. Pant was also taken a lot of initiative, and this Open University in 1985 has come into reality. So that means Professor Ramareddy Garu was a very silent worker, a silent, rather builder of the institutions. Ideas have been shared with many of these people, and everyone who came in contact with him, political leaders or others, were totally appreciative of his personality, his ideas, his innovations, and his revolutionary thinking. Revolutionary in the context of change, but not revolution of the other dictionary meaning. So therefore, the Professor Parthasarathy's report has been used, and his own knowledge has been used, and ultimately, 1985, most of you know that IGNOU has come into existence. And this is the one university where they have taken a lot of initiative. Efforts have been started, as I said already, from 1974-76, and 85 it has come into existence. The educational side of Professor Ramareddy was the designer and architect of this National Open University, mega university subsequently. It was natural that the task to lead and establish, operationalize this university was handed over to him. This was not an easy task, for it had many challenges, keeping in view the Indian environment, whether it was social, cultural, or economic, or political. Because you also know, in the last year of his own IGNOU's vice chancellorship, there was some political intervention. But in any case, this type of pressures will be there always. And against all those odds and pressures, you could successfully initiate all these institutions and could lay the foundation for this university and to develop the aims and objectives, vision and mission of this university. And in fact, same curriculum, same courses, same multimedia packages for learners, same conducting examinations, and same facilities for every student spread over the whole of India was the initiative which Indira Gandhi IGNOU has taken, and it was very successful. And when we learn that 3 million students are on the rolls of IGNOU, and this is not a small achievement. And then, since the IGNOU not only emerged as the resource control center of open distance learning, introduced flexibility, collaboration, all these things you know pretty well, I don't have to repeat, pooling the knowledge resources and of the country to conceive, plan, and development the multimedia tools for higher education. You have seen, you are very well aware of MOOCs, and you are well aware of digitalization, you are well aware of quality production of this material. And at least I know some of these issues where Professor Ramareddy Garu contacting eminent people, great brains, to ultimately prepare the material. And they came, they were with the institution, and the persons who have been recruited also, we know the ideologies and all these things were not a matter for him. It was the intelligence, it was the creativeness of the teacher or the member who faces the interview, and ultimately is the best skills of the person that ultimately makes him to select rather than ideology and other things. So that is why the university has been built phenomenally in this particular 5 years period. And this is growing phase by phase and leaps and bounds and became a mega university. What Professor Ravindra Kumar has just now said, he will not lag behind even to, that means he will not allow the university to drift downwards, but step by step they will see, and the entire faculty is committed to improve the standards and ultimately the name of this great university. I am personally aware, this is where inviting many people. He was not only the planner, but also quick decision maker and implementer of innovations. No doubt, IGNOU was the first to offer choice-based credit system, because today you are well known. and Delhi University, how things are going on. And choice-based credit system still in lot of discussion and debates, but you have introduced in as early as 1988. So that means you are times ahead of the changes which now Indian higher education is wanted, or UGC is planning, or the other universities are thinking of. And education at the doorstep was the motto, with emphasis on providing opportunities for the woman, marginalized, and the needy. It was a system established that was affordable to all, both in terms of fees, structures, and also flexibility of time space. There one could study at his own pace. And at the same time, most of the study centers which have been established were the existing institutions, existing degree colleges, sometimes very rarely schools, but mostly colleges. And the existing infrastructure has been used. That means that also is cost effective. And IGNOU could take it to the grassroots. And ultimately all the deserving people from there only, the technology which has been used again is really impressive. And radios they can listen, CDs they can purchase and listen, and number of other things which now, as your CD has already shown, how many are the internet users, how many of them have mobiles, how many of them other facilities, and all these things are at their doorstep. In their own house, in their own room, they can see, study, and ultimately improve their qualifications. And this flexibility in time space, they can plan and develop themselves. And then another two important things which I feel, so many in the conventional system simultaneously doing diplomas, certificate courses in your own university. That means conventional university, they may be going for a degree and PG or UG level, but diplomas and that means second degree, simultaneously they can think of, diploma they can think of, and which is useful there for their profession, for their promotion or their skill development. And here, number of corporate people, public and private sectors, companies are pursuing MBA, MCA, which also is well known to you, and in doctors doing health education in your university. And for all these things, the team selected by Professor Ram Reddy Garu in IGNOU for the teaching and other things was instrumental. If you don't have, in state universities, we have number of problems, but in your central university, this is a central university, and it has been recognized more or less like a UGC for the distance learning, and where your selections are quality-based and excellent. That is why the material that has been produced or the work that is going on and their contribution is immense, and any vice chancellor will be having pleasure to develop it further and further from that. And Professor Ram Reddy Garu's foundations were really great, and the others pursued it and must be adding now and then on many things. And now, IGNOU, I think, again, you every one of you know that many, their branches are there, your IGNOU branches are there in many foreign countries. And now its education also going to the foreign countries. So this way, the distance education, I was told IGNOU was passing through a critical stage where it has been pushed under a system which whose inadequacy in the area of open learning had laid the criteria for IGNOU. And here I wanted to elaborate the conventional education where it could not reach to the nook and corner, and making IGNOU and distance learning to reach them through your distance learning mode. But the UGC subsequently tried to interfere, and then it has taken over your own DEC, Distance Learning Center, and which is autonomous body, which was looking after the various distance education universities, that means open universities in the country. And now suddenly UGC has taken over. Probably now and then there may be some sort of intervention. And I think all of you as the stakeholders, as the intellectuals, as the persons who are ultimately responsible for building of this university will naturally intervene and see to it that your autonomy, your knowledge systems, which have been used even by the conventional university, should be allowed to be autonomous and ultimately strengthen this. Therefore, your unity and your responsibility is much more when the new education policies are always surfacing. For example, And in early 21st century, we have seen Knowledge Commission. It has suggested there should be 1,500 universities that can be the ultimate motto in the country to provide education. But in the existing institutions itself, and 500 and odd, I can be sure to tell not less than 200 universities have hardly any infrastructure in the, not even the faculty. And some of them are not even properly qualified. And they are running, some of them are in the colleges. So this is unfortunate. So therefore, the conventional education should be strengthened, and IGNOU and distance learning also should supplement. Both of them should supplement each other and ultimately see that Indian education system strengthened and the knowledge reaches everyone, and the knowledge ultimately makes the knowledge society. And when it becomes a knowledge society, globally, the developing nation will become a developed nation. And both intellectually and socially and worldwide, we can get the recognition. And therefore, this is one area on which all of you have to ponder over, all of us have to ponder over, and ultimately see these conventional as well as distance mode to continue further and further, so that majority of the Indians who are in the nook and corner, who are living in distant places, whether it is in the forest or in the villages or nook and corner, they can also get the benefit of this education in a democratic country like ours. Here it was to be taken note of today, the demand for higher education system of the country, of that, the collaboration, quality, research, and changes contemplated to achieve them and take place in the top universities of the world. That means if all these things are thought about and we work for it, it will become one of the top universities. Not only IGNOU, but also many of the universities. But unfortunately, none of our universities are figuring in the first 200, except one recently, IIT that. But we have the potential, and all of us have to pool up our energies. And then at the same time, the government also should give freedom and spend its 6% of the GDP on the education. The infrastructure is absolutely poor, and education recruitment is poor, and probably IGNOU also may be suffering for the recruitment of staff. And other universities, we have seen lot of difficulty. Even 40% of the staff are not there, some of the prestigious universities under the control of the states. So therefore, all these things have to be attended to maintain the quality and academic atmosphere in the campuses, and taking the best teachers and of both systems have to ensure responsibility and accountability. It should be remembered that the students of today has access to wide resources, and the teachers have to keep pace with the educational needs, not only of today, but of future, if we have to make Indian education system that the glory of past Nalanda or Takshashila or many of these universities of yesteryears, and we can reach, and ultimately our universities, educational institutions can be the top models for others. But however, before I conclude few more things and few more minutes, the open learning system was a great model to the growing population, much more in the developing nation like India. The conventional and open university models were supplementing each other. They are not competitors, but both help in the nation building and the growth of literacy, skills, and knowledge. So presently, digitalization of education programs has been taken, and we have seen, every one of us, you are particularly knowing about these things, and it has been taken very seriously by IGNOU, and it is now, I think, paperless and online payments only, to develop and free competition globally, and to become developed nation, it should improve, I quote, the quality of its human resources through well-defined lifelong education, education policies and programs. Massive number of non-literate, emerging knowledge economy, a challenge of globalization, tremendous expansion of information communications technology, and increasing lifespan of individuals call for major shift in the adult education policy and programs. Particularly distance education or distance learning needs more and more emphasis. Presently, commercialization of education is rampant both in school system as well as higher education, because this is well known in every urban center, almost all metropolis. And proliferation of substandard institutions diminished the credibility of educational system. Therefore, the main thrust should be to devise, I quote, devise effective strategies to address the divergent challenges for the growth of education in India and realizing the potential of the country's demographic dividend, which the educational inputs which has been given for the educational policy, our national education policy of 2016, and government certainly will try to help in this development of this higher education in India. But in any case, your electronic media, because recently on 24th I was also with your Professor Kapil Kumar and your regional center in Gnanavani inauguration. And there are quite a few states which have taken up this Gnanavani and also Gnanadhan, EduSet, and the digital electronic system, digitalization, and many other things where IGNOU is one of the best universities that one could think of. And coming to the next 1 or 2 points and to close, Professor Ramareddy Garu was aware of the decline in some of the places, universities, and non-accountability also. Therefore, he was pondering over a rich idea, which in Western countries is very popular, is the assessment. And NAAC was the creation, or more or less the idea was the creation of Professor Ramareddy Garu. And here in NAAC, when we visit, I think many of you must have visited a number of colleges and universities. And you know, many of these quality assurances, ICT use, library digitalization, and many other things are not really aware of. Not really aware of. When we say these things, they immediately ponder over the issue. And subsequently they try. In the second cycle, they were trying to improve. And this is one area in which quality improvement is expected, and this has been ultimately given to higher education by Professor Ramareddy Garu. This was his idea. And as early as 1980, in Usmania University, in the process of democratization, and rotation of headships have been introduced. And by introducing this rotation of headship, monopoly of some teacher for 20 years, 30 years, or whatever as the head, and naturally without giving adequate support for the research and the new innovations, is rather suffering. Therefore, he wanted the rotation of headship so that everyone can get his opportunity to rather develop the university. Though here and there some side effects may be there, but overall this worked very well and working very well country over. And the UGC has accepted this principle in the subsequent period. But in any case, he did not care for ideological issues which I was mentioning in the beginning, and selected on merit and quality of the teachers. His ideas were responsible for silent revolution in the institutions where he headed. Professor Ramareddy Garu's ideas and dynamism is the need of the hour. It is not money, length of service, but quality of inputs in higher education meets the challenges to compete with the world institutions, making everyone in the system accountable. And further, he was committed to democratization of higher education and contributed to enhance the educational knowledge everyone who seeks education. And to close, Professor Ramareddy Garu was a visionary, certainly provided necessary leadership for higher education in India. God has done great injustice, not only to his family, but also to education system in India in the critical period when the standards of ethics, values in higher education are declining in rapid pace. He is no more amidst us. He would have given good direction and leadership to higher education if he was to be alive. And we pay our homage to this great soul, and who was my teacher, as I said already, who influenced us, and in many in Usmania University who came in touch, and probably outside in the various places, they were admirers of not only Professor Ramareddy Garu, but also his ideas, and they are great followers and great admirers of this great soul. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share some of the ideas on my Guruji. And though I have not done justice, but yet the great soul, I have some occasion to rather give memorial lecture. And thank you everyone, and Professor Ravindra Kumar, Kapil Kumar, and all entire faculty, and those who are here And thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for so thoughtfully sharing your excerpts on Professor G. Ram Reddy and enlightening us with the journey and scope of open and distance education.
आपने अपना बहुमूल्य समय हमें दिया, यहाँ आए, हम इसके लिए आपके आभारी हैं। अब पूर्वाहन का हमारा ये कार्यक्रम धीरे धीरे समाप्ति की ओर। उसके पहले एक बार हम आप सबको फिर से याद दिला दें कि 2:30 बजे से इसी सभागार में गीत संध्या का आयोजन किया गया है, जिसमें हिंदी के शीर्षस्थ कवि सम्मिलित हो रहे हैं। आप सबको उसमें मैं सादर आमंत्रित करती हूँ। आप कृपया यहाँ 2:30 बजे से आएँ। और अब मैं अपने कुल सचिव श्री शिवनंदन कुमार शर्मा जी से आग्रह करती हूँ कि वो धन्यवाद ज्ञापन करें।
आदरणीय कुलपति महोदय प्रोफेसर रविंद्र कुमार जी, आज के इस समारोह के मुख्य अतिथि प्रोफेसर एम जगदीश कुमार जी, कुलपति जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय, आज के समारोह में स्मृति व्याख्यान देने आए आचार्य वाई वैकुंठम, पूर्व कुलपति काकतीय विश्वविद्यालय वालंगन तेलंगाना, आदरणीय श्रीमती प्रोमिला राम रेड्डी जी, डॉक्टर जितेंद्र कुमार श्रीवास्तव, अध्यक्ष प्रोफेसर जी राम रेड्डी स्मृति व्याख्यान आयोजन समिति, एवं सभी विद्यापीठों प्रभागों के निदेशक एवं प्रभागा अध्यक्ष तथा सभागार में उपस्थित मेरे सभी साथियों, मैं सर्वप्रथम कुलपति महोदय का धन्यवाद करता हूं, जिनकी प्रेरणा से हम यह कार्यक्रम इस रूप में आयोजित कर सके हैं। मैं आज के मुख्य अतिथि जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय के कुलपति प्रोफेसर एम जगदीश कुमार जी का भी हार्दिक धन्यवाद करता हूं, जिन्होंने इस समारोह में उपस्थित होकर एवं शिक्षा पर सारगर्भित विचार प्रकट करके हमारे कार्यक्रम की शोभा को बढ़ाया है। मैं आभारी हूं प्रोफेसर वाई वैकुंठम जी, पूर्व कुलपति काकतीय विश्वविद्यालय का, जिन्होंने इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विश्वविद्यालय के प्रथम कुलपति प्रोफेसर जी राम रेड्डी के बारे में कई महत्वपूर्ण जानकारियां हमें दी एवं उनके उच्च व्यक्तित्व के कई आयामों से हमें परिचित कराया। मैं इसके बाद डॉक्टर जितेंद्र कुमार श्रीवास्तव जी, जो श्री राम रेड्डी स्मृति व्याख्यान आयोजन समिति के अध्यक्ष हैं, उनका भी आभार प्रकट करना चाहूँगा, जिन्होंने इस आयोजन को सफल बनाने में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाई है। इसके पश्चात मैं सभागार में उपस्थित सभी विद्यापीठों प्रभागों के निदेशक एवं प्रभागा अध्यक्षों एवं सभी साथियों का धन्यवाद करता हूं, जिनकी उपस्थिति इस समारोह के सफल आयोजन का महत्वपूर्ण अंग है। अंत में मैं प्रशासन प्रभाग, सुरक्षा विभाग, ईएमपीसी एवं उद्यान प्रकोष्ठ के सभी साथियों का भी आभार व्यक्त करता हूं, जिन्होंने इस कार्यक्रम को सफल बनाने में अपना भरपूर सहयोग हमें दिया है। धन्यवाद।